are blessed to have Emmanuel Vitus with us. He's already online. Vitus, you can be on standby. Once I'm done, then you take it over, considering your time. All right, so people often ask me, who is this Vitus guy? What's so special about him? Usually it's people like you and those whose toes I occasionally and accidentally step on who ask. My answer is simple. I'm really nobody and I have nothing, absolutely nothing, but I'm working on that. I'm looking forward to the day when my assets will fill about half an A4 sheet. I'm not even well educated, yes, but at least I'm luckier than most Togolese. I can read, write, add, and subtract. I can even solve a few Sudoku puzzles. I graduated from the University of Hard Knocks with 2 master's degrees in make things happen. And don't worry, be happy. I'm a liberal, an optimistic pessimist. I'm an optimistic pessimist, always hoping for the best, but always prepared for the worst. Irrelevant, stubborn, loyal, difficult, but not impossible to please. An enemy of stupidity. I am whatever you think I am. Yes, I am a genuine African hustler. I live between Lyon, France, and the beautiful city of Lomé, Togo, depending on the temperature. In West Africa, in West Africa, I've been part of the internet governance ecosystem since 2011. One of the few Africans at Net Mondial, that is 2014. Yes, that was there 10 years ago. And often at ICANN, very often, ITU, etc. Fill in the blanks. I make a living from research and also speak several languages, including Twi, Yoruba, Ewe, French, Portuguese, and English. And here's the person who says he's nobody. Yeah. So hold on.
Hi, my boss. Okay, so before he takes over, Vitus has been one of the greatest supports for GhanaSIG from day one. And it is actually his idea that we started using Google Class. He actually introduced that to me. And he's been a very great support to us, and we appreciate it. And from day one from GhanaSIG, he's been part of us and has been part of the faculty since GhanaSIG 1. So we are proud to have him once more.
Great. So thank you so much, Raymond, for adding that. And of all the things you have heard, and then this person says, I am nobody. I leave that for you. But I tend to agree with him because the more you read, the more you learn, the more you get exposed, you actually realize that you don't know much. So that's the only part that I agree with him. But he's huge. He has a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience to share. Yes, and then his Raymond's mentor. So if you've ever looked at Raymond and you think Raymond is huge, he's telling you that he's telling you that that is his mentor, just for you to have an idea of who we are talking about. So Vitus, we are happy to have you. Please take it over.
With all the hype. That's good. I feel so good. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here. I mean, I think I've been around physically, COVID took me away, and I hope that we can see each other. I see few people in the room, I mean, common faces. Francis spoke a few minutes ago. Francis and I were now experts on the subject. I will not talk much about it, but that was 2 weeks ago in Kigali. So yes, I was really, really happy meeting meeting Frank and working
yeah.
with, yes, Anati, and I really appreciate that. Also, Ashil was also part of the 7 champions that were trained in Kigali. So I'm really, really happy having all those faces. I can see in the Zoom room some people who have been there for a while. I mean, they have been fellow, and I guess they came back to mentor you guys. So don't take it for granted. I think they have a lot to share, not like some of us. So let's actually dig into this quickly. It's not usually my cup of tea, but I decided this time around to drink it. Usually when you see me around is to talk about digital rights, is to talk about AI, is to talk about digital inclusion. Those are like my topics. But they said we should talk about digital divide, which is like from the same family. So I decided to drink this tea. So we'll make it very simple. I will make the presentation. For the first time, I'll do a presentation without image. It's not my style, but because the tea has changed, so I also decide not to put sugar in it. So we'll discuss later. I hope we'll have time for all that. And when I look at the agenda, you have great people who have been talking to you for since the online school and the beginning of this week. So I think this will just be an adapt to whatever you have actually been learning for the few days. So let's look at it. So we'll look at the digital divide and the digital inequality, looking at it from the African perspective, why, I mean, we are all fighting to not let anyone behind. Where is Africa today? Why are we there? How can we get to where we want to get to in terms of digital inclusion and filling the digital divide gap? So people often ask, what is digital divide? So the term divide refers to the gap between those who have computers with internet and those who do not, as well as gap between those who are computer literate and those who are not. So you can see that it's 2 different concepts. It's not just having the device, but having the knowledge, having that literacy to be able to use the device. So you can see from the responses, somebody said, why don't the cable and telephone companies expand their infrastructure and make broadband more affordable to all consumers? And he got a response, because they are not regulated enough by the government. Well, we'll look at it, whether it's a government fault, if we still have those gaps today, or is all of us, you know, our collective efforts to actually, fill that gap. So when you look at it, this is the chairman of the FCC in 2001, like we're talking about like more than 20 years ago. He thinks that the term digital divide sometimes is dangerous in the sense that it suggests that the minute a new and innovative technology is introduced in the market, there's a divide unless it is equitably distributed among every part of society. And that is just unreal. And he's right. I think there's a Mercedes divide. I like one, but I can't afford it. I'm not mean to be completely flip about this. I think this is an important social issue, but it should not be used to justify the notion, the socialization of deployment of the infrastructure. So what he means is we shouldn't look at it, for example, that the example is given, because we are talking about digital. So if Mercedes come out with a car and I can't afford it, it means technically I've been left out, or I've been left behind. That's not what we are talking about. If we look at it in that way, I think the capitalists can always justify the digital divide that we have today. So what is really that digital inequality? So we want to look at the inequality, based on socioeconomic factors that limit people from obtaining digital information technologies. So you can see like income may limit some of them, age may limit some of them. There's a prime minister, he used to be AU chairman, he's dead now, it's called Edem Kojo. Edem Kojo a few years ago wrote a book, and in his book, Africa in the year 2000s, he was writing the book in the late 90s. So he was thinking how the year 2000 will look like. And he said that the uneducated people of the year 2000 will not be, how do you call it? will not be by education, by digital literacy. So age here means what? If you look at the different generation, even in the room today, you look at the different generation, somebody may have 60 years, somebody may have 40 years, and still, being, how do you call it? Not having that digital literacy. And a young boy of 5 years or 7 years may be able to use a mobile phone, for example. So age become a factor, education become a factor, household become a factor, and the geographical location. Somebody may be living in Accra, because you guys in Accra, you don't see that problem, but travel outside Accra, travel to, within the country, in the villages, those last miles, when you check, those people don't have electricity. They don't have access to any broadband service, and sometimes even telephone, they don't have. So their geographical location may limit them, or may cause that digital inequality to them. So we'll look at it this way. When you look at the map, this is the 2024 map. If you look at this map, you look at the divide across the world. If you look at Europe, we have regions in Northern Europe, for example, Finland, Denmark, etc., where almost 97% of the population in those communities use internet. When you go to the US, you look at the North America, Canada, you see that they are at 96%. You go to even Latin America, where we share like some common realities. You go to those regions, they are 82%. But when you come to Africa, let's take West Africa, for example, you have 43 people having 43% having access to the internet. When you go to Central Africa or Middle Africa, is even worse, like DRC, etc. When you go to DRC, etc., is even worse. They are 32%. So this shows you that we are the only continent today, as I speak right now, left behind. Although you can see some 51% from South Asia, they are still, beyond the average when you look at the Africa map. So this is just to show you, where we actually place ourselves today in terms of internet penetration, in terms of being African. So I'll move forward and show you the various divide that exists. So today, when we talk about divide, people often think just directly about the internet. No, we have the socioeconomical divide, we have the infrastructure divide. Infrastructure can be fiber, it can be broadband, it can be electricity, it can be anything, infrastructure. It can even be road, So divide in terms of content. We'll look at all those elements very soon. But in terms of content, for example, my native language is French. And I think a few years ago, it was difficult for me. And I think somebody sitting in that room right now, there are some words he's still learning. Achille may testify how content can be a divide for him, although he's very well educated. Because the language, if you look at the internet today, most of the content are in those Latin script languages like English, French, and the people who speak Twi, the people who speak our African languages, they are left behind. Not because those people don't have the capability or to use, to read those content. They have the telephone, they have the internet, but the content, in those devices are in a different language they cannot reach. We'll have the universal access divide, the gender divide, the skill divide. I think when we move along, you understand all that. So when I'm talking about the socioeconomical divide, that bit. So the problem here, when we are talking about socioeconomical factors, is like, for example, the gap between the developed countries and the developed country and developing countries. The difference between those countries, usually we know how we actually classify them, is beyond the extent of the internet use. Countries that are regarded as developed countries will have larger ratio of publics that have access to the internet. Why? Because they have the infrastructure, because they have the right policies, because they have the right people doing the right thing. So that can be, I mean, like a factor that we look at, because if you elect a leader, your leader can come and close, for example, the digital divide. Easy. Easy because the person has, you know, that, how do you call it, political will of saying that, for example, I see the future of Ghanaians through this. So that person can come and change your life. You go to other countries, the person may come and change, you know, their life through agriculture. So every generation, our leaders that we elect sometime can help us close, you know, those kind of divide. Now, the divide in infrastructure. I was talking about it right now, that infrastructure can create a divide. So infrastructure within a developed country, for example, is significantly greater than infrastructure within, you know, a developing country like Ghana. So an example of this, the dispersion of electricity. I spoke about it earlier, for example. When you live, you know, in certain countries, it's just the capital city that has internet. Just, I mean, when you are in a plane, if you have the opportunity to be in a plane and you are in the plane, just open your window at night. You will not see, you will be seeing the light, like small light across the whole country until you reach the capital city. So that, for example, is how do you call it? A divide in infrastructure. And without electricity, how can people have internet? Because the internet is powered by electricity. So we have a divide in content. That's what I was actually talking about. And I have a quote here, but I think explaining it is better. So I said language is key. So language can be a divide. If today we are fighting, either I can, Isaac, give it a name. Everybody keep fighting for, let's bring local languages on the internet. I know Wikipedia doing a great job in those fronts, etc. Why are they doing that? They are doing that because the more we have our content on the internet, the more we can close that divide. It's like, for example, recently I was having a chat with somebody and I'm saying that the more the technology is even moving, content will always follow. Just ask ChatGPT, for example, I don't know, a very basic question. Just ask him, for example, if Taiwan is an independent state. He will give you the answer based on the content that people put online there. So like, it's very important for us as citizens or as internet users to make our languages known, to actually publish content in our languages. I'm a French speaker. We often complain, like everywhere we go, we complain. I mean, even like we outside the internet ecosystem, we complain in our entire life. Why? Because we always complain saying that the content are in English. We want the content in our languages, but do we produce them? That is the big question. So let's continue, producing the content, because content can be a divide for those who do not speak English, for example. Not because they are stupid. We have people, for example, who are well educated in their own languages. If you go to Ethiopia, they have their own language. It's the only country in the world that speaks its own language in mathematics, in science, in everything. So those people, if they don't put Amharic online, for example, the content divide will be there. People who have degree in that country and still, be left behind. And we go to the universal access divide. People who suffer from some sort of physical disabilities, for example, are marginalized, when it comes to access. So, for example, sometimes the software, the hardware, people who are visually impaired, for example, who actually think about them in their local languages. So sometimes maybe when you speak English, well, it may be easier for you to use some of the devices using the visually impaired languages, etc. But if you don't speak that, you speak Twi and they give you a phone, you don't have your eyes, how can you use it? So like, let's think like beyond, the internet access. So now when you come to the gender divide, so the divide in terms of gender still exists, just like in education. In education, few years ago, they always said that, oh, okay, don't send the women to school. Don't send the women to school because there's no use for it. Women are made for kitchen and those kind of things. That has been the mentality, for our culture. It can be like cultural. That's what we're thinking. So that today, for example, has created a lot of divide when it comes to gender. It has also, we have those, like, due to the formal education that some of the women did not receive. You have women in market today, they can do everything. They can do more in the markets if they can just use their mobile phone to do e-commerce, to do their mobile phone to do delivery, do things. But because they are left behind from traditional education, it's very difficult for them today to have that equality with men when it comes to the usage of those devices or the access to the internet. So the skill divide. So it's good that we all have the internet. However, you have obtained such access, you need the skills, as I was saying, you need the skill to which you can utilize that opportunity. Although accessibility has been steadily increased, skill has not necessarily increased at the same rate as the accessibility has. So this even go beyond like people who actually go to school or do not go to school. If you go to traditional school, it may be easier for you, but it's even better if in our educational curriculum, for example, we have ICT. It make it easy for somebody, for example, who gets to university, not to go and sit down looking for people to type, his thesis for him, because he went to school. I saw this image a few years ago in Ghana where they were teaching children how to use computer on a blackboard, for example. That's what we're talking about. How can our government or how can we, even civil society or foundation, support those community so that people have this literacy included into their curriculum within the country, so that when they actually get to a certain level where they need to use this, it should be easier for them to use it. So the skill is very important. I know there's a lot of organizations doing that. How do we support them? I think we'll get there soon. And how can we assist the government to solve the issue around the access? So I will not read all this, but I think there are a lot of ways to do that. I give examples for some countries like South Africa and other countries where they actually support their government, because it's not just a government role. There's not just a government role to just provide access or assist people in terms of issues surrounding access. It's a common role that we have to play from where we are sitting. I don't know, I didn't read your backgrounds, but it doesn't matter where you're coming from. It doesn't matter. Even if it's 2 people that you help, it solves the problem. So if every year GhanaSIG train, I don't know, maybe 40 people, and 40 people are able to train 40, I think we are getting there. So we need, such initiatives, even in our homes, how we actually give that opportunity for people to be able to actually learn how to use those devices, how to use social media, how to use, those technology, how to use the devices. Like, we have to actually do that in such a way that we don't wait for the government. It's a government role though, but we don't have to wait for a government to do that. We have to teach people the importance and the welfare using the digital divide. So next, the Universal Access Fund. I just want to talk about it briefly. I don't know whether you have heard about it before, but the fund exists in almost every country today. So that fund usually is a percentage that every government takes from the telcos. So the telcos, like the telecommunication, like phone operators and fiber optic internet service providers, etc., they actually give a certain percentage. In some countries, it's 2%. In some countries, 5% of their, their income. So that income is being given to the regulatory authority or the ministry, depending on how the setup is in countries. Sometimes the fund is even independent, where they collect those money to connect the unconnected. The objective is to reduce the digital divide, bridge the gap between those who have access to modern ICT and those who do not have. So it helps, for example, building towers in areas where the mobile operators will not have a return on investment, because that's what they do. Usually they go and build a tower in a village because they know that with the population in that village, they can have a return on investment. But if they don't build those infrastructure, who build it? That's where the government actually come on board, using this Universal Access Fund to go to those white zones, to build those towers and make it a shared infrastructure for all the, all the companies. Those funds sometimes go to libraries, sometimes it goes to initiatives like the GhanaSIG, for example. The Universal Access Fund can actually give that money to them in terms of policy. For example, the IGFs, they can fund the IGFs and other initiatives that will help the development of infrastructure or incentive to develop infrastructure or knowledge in the underserved communities. So Why can't the Universal Access Fund be used to provide affordable internet to everyone? That's the big problem. The big question we always ask in most African countries, because they collect the fund. That is a fact in almost every country, but there's no accountability on the usage of those funds. I don't know much about how Ghana use its Universal Access Fund, but this may be a very good opportunity for you to check how Ghana, for example, is using its Universal Service Fund. What are the projects that they have actually used the fund for? And usually in some countries where they are accountable, they publish reports. They call it impact reports. You can see the impact reports, on their website. So in Ghana, you can even check who gets, who get to use the Universal Access Fund. So it's very important, because once you have that information and you are growing in this ecosystem, you can hold your government accountable. So it's very important to check how Ghana is using the fund and the impact is bringing, the initiative they are supporting, and who knows, they may even support your initiatives to bring the data divide in those white and underserved communities. So my opinion is simple. If you elect the, how do you call it, the hyena to take care of the goats, to just eat them. So the leaders that we elect, we have to always check their ICT agenda. It's very, very important, because regulation and the people who are there to regulate, or who are promoting the competition between the, how do you call it, the access providers, is very important. That's the only way for me, I think, in the Africa we are today, to close that gap, because we are left behind. And if we don't have strong policies, if we don't have accountability, it will be very, very difficult for us. So in my last word, I think the rich are getting good, the poor are very often left out, and this means that we are creating, yet again, to Africa, and deepening the inequality through this communication inequality. We have to have the same rights, we have to have the same access if we want to build, a connected continent, if we want to actually follow the trend of the fourth industrial revolution. Thank you. I'm open to questions. As I said, the objective was to discuss. So no image, no distraction, no video, but don't worry, if you come back again to GhanaSIG next year, I'll distract you. Thank you. I think the volume from your end, I can't hear the room.
Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel. My name is Raimin Wati. I am a librarian from Benin Republic. I would like to share my experience with you and then ask you a question. I work for an NGO that provides free access to internet to people. So we have many libraries across Benin. So when you come to any one of our library, we allow you to connect yourself, to have the connection to the internet. And most of the time when people come there, we notice that some people are not really interested in understanding how the internet work, how the devices work, all those things. They are only interested in like surfing, playing on social media, all those things. And I'm not judging, but most of the time, girls, when you see them, they are like all the time on TikTok, on all those things. And when you organize some activities, because I work in a library that is inside the Faculty of Health Science. So when I'm the head of animation department, so when I organize some activities to teach them how to like how to use the mail, how to do like some activities like graphism, all those things, you are going to see that most of the time, girls, they don't come. They are not interested in that. I would like to ask you, what if the people we want to impact, they don't want it? what should we do? And also we noticed that some people in the villages, let assume that you go to a village where people are not even able to eat, able to find 1 meal per day, and you go there, you say that I want to teach you how to use a device. They are going to insult you. So what do you think about all those issues, and what kind of solution can we bring to the table in order to fix this problem so that everybody can get access to the internet devices and connection?
Okay, thank you very much. I think and congratulations for what you are doing in Benin. I think, as I said, everybody has to play a role. That day when we will all go there, we'll have to respond for what we did. Raymond is doing his best. You are doing your best. Everybody is doing his own. The only thing that I can tell you for the first question that you ask is, I don't know whether you know this proverb when they said, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make him drink. I think the same apply. I mean, you just play your role, play it very well. You are an educator, so educate the people, make them see the usefulness of it, because that's it. If you are forcing me to create an email, I want to know what I want to get from it. Show me the person who has created an email and has helped his life, because that's how the Africans actually think. So it's very important that we also identify the people that we want to actually bring online, and those people, we have to educate them. Education is very key, and I know it's always difficult. Your second question was that you go to people who do not have food to eat, but are able to, you are going to tell them that come and connect to the internet. Are we going to eat the internet? I predict that question. That's what they will ask you. So what I can tell you is everybody in his share role. I think that's what the definition of internet governance is. Everybody in his share role his share responsibility, play the role, So you play your role. Government's role or other NGOs' role is to actually bring electricity to villages. Other NGOs' role is to bring water to the villages. Other organizations' roles are to actually help them in agriculture. So you want to actually connect them, look for your targets, identify the targets. Do they really need it? Do your, how do you call it? What we call a feasibility study with those communities before you take it to them. Because sometimes in Africa, you can do things and it's weird. I remember a few years ago, we were discussing that it was in Nigeria. They built a whole modern market and nobody went there because it was a very ancient or like very, very old cemetery. And the women said that we cannot go and, stay in that market because it's like having a market, in the terms of our ancestors. Because there was no feasibility study. There was no cultural study to see the acceptability, from those communities. So it's very important. Even if we want to connect people, we have to actually identify the right target. We have to educate them. We have to do the right feasibility study so that when we take it to them, they will accept it. You cannot go and open a restaurant selling pork, in a Zongo. You know that, right? It will not work. It will not work because yeah, it will be a very nice restaurant, but nobody will come and eat it because it's not their cup of tea. So you have to do your feasibility study and also involve them. Involvement is very key. Involve those community when you are actually, building such infrastructure or taking such initiatives to them. ISOC has a very nice project. I urge you to go and look for it. All of you, go and look for it. They call it do it yourself. They do it yourself of ISOC, do it yourself community network projects. Look for it and see how the successful community networks are working in Africa. Why are they working? And you will see that the involvement of the community into those initiatives was the key element to their success. So look for it. See, they have a lot of documentation for community networks. Read it and see how you can succeed into that. If you are not good in reading, go and join the local chapter of ISOC, and I think they can actually show you how to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we'll take just last two. and then you can respond to both. His time is limited. Okay, so kindly let's make it.
Okay, thank you so much for the presentation. My question is, talking about digital divide, are we looking beyond mere access to devices and the internet? That is my question.
Okay, good to see you again, Emmanuel. So my question, actually it was a question for the last session, but I think you are in good position to answer to it. So there is a saying that, there is a saying that the data is the new gold nowadays. So like posting things on social media and all that. But in like the developed countries, they used to put policies in place to protect their citizens. But when we come into Africa, we do not have such policies that we govern or regulation. I'm aware that some countries are doing it at the national level. But the thing is, if Ghana is doing it, but Benin is not doing it, then let's take the example of Google, for instance. So if Ghana is refusing Google to establish their branch in Ghana because they are not compliant to the regulation, they may go to Benin. And at the end of the day, we are all African. We can use their products, but we are still exposed to some barriers, or we are also exposed to some risks. So what's your say about this? Because I know you are a tech policy researcher.
Yes, thank you very much. The problem we have, I will start with for the first question. Are we looking at the mere access to the internet? No. And if you follow my presentation, I said it. We have to look at it with a 360-degree approach. Why? Because people can have the device, they need the skill, they need the knowledge to use it. I spoke about, for example, having ICT in our educational curriculums, having ICT, how do you call it, in all the educational programs that we have in our countries, because even if the people, I mean, somebody just said it, they have a library, you can come and use it if you don't have the device. At least they close that gap. But you cannot go to the library, you cannot use it because you have no skill, you have no knowledge. So we are not looking, when we're talking about divide or what we are fighting for, is not just for the devices. No, we are looking at the skills, we are looking at other components that help that thing to work, like infrastructure, for example. How do you call it? Electricity, for example. So you have to have that 360 approach. That's why in my presentation, I said, it's not just the connection, but we look at that, the divide, socially, politically, economically, like we look at it from all angles, is the only way to be able to achieve this. And to respond to the last question from Achille, the problem Africa has, and I think many speakers will be telling you the same thing, we don't have harmonization of our frameworks. And that is a problem. You know, when the European Union came out with the GDPR, for example, everybody in this world was able to comply. In the US, in Asia, in Africa, everybody complied to the GDPR. Why? Because 27 countries came out and said, we want this. If you are keeping our citizen data, you have to comply. Imagine you have a website. You don't know when somebody from Europe will visit the website and you are collecting the person's cookies. They can see you, you will never come out of it. So everybody just comply with it. But in Africa, we don't have that continental harmonization of our, how do you call it, of the various frameworks that we have. I know there's a lot of work going on with the Malabo Convention regarding personal data and cybersecurity. There's a lot of, how do you call it, work going on with the Kigali Agenda, the Cotonou Declaration, the Banjul Declaration. Most of them are mere declarations. So we still have a problem of harmonizing, you know, our policies. Ghana, as you said, even if Ghana want to tell Google, don't come to Ghana, and Benin will accept it, people will use VPN to connect. That's very simple. Nigeria has actually stopped Twitter, and we saw what happened. because we don't have local solutions. Before you tell Google, don't come to my country, you were able to develop homegrown startups that are providing same solution, cheaper and affordable. But if you are not offering that and you are just going with policy, you can never succeed. If China said we don't want WhatsApp, we don't want Uber, we don't want, all those American giants, it's because China is able to actually develop homegrown, economy in such a way that the startups in China were able to create WeChat, they are able to create Grab, they are able to create other alternatives to all those Western, how do you call it? But in Africa, it doesn't work. Why? And I think I'll stop there. Why it doesn't work? Because the person will come out with a solution, and I see that often in Nigeria, Kenya, and Ghana. He brings a solution, which is a very nice one. I mean, he said that he's the new Uber of Africa. Even the name self, like, he's the new Uber of Africa. We are coming to replace Uber, and then Uber will come secretly and see this guy and tell him that, you know why? Oh, great innovation. We want to buy equity in it. And usually that's how it, because they will actually take everything from us. We saw the example with Andela. We saw the example, even ChatGPT. The people who trained ChatGPT were in Kenya. How much were they paid? $11 to develop like the product we have today as ChatGPT. And some of us have even like graduated in it today. We are using it like, our daily tea. It was developed and trained by people in Kenya. So it means that there's no political will of supporting those startups. And the startups that are coming out, there's no like investment into them in such a way that they can compete with those American giants. And those giants too, they play that role. And in some life, I also play it. When you actually identify across, for example, Europe, what are the technologies that European startups are developing that will compete with the company you are working for? And if you see that this is good, you rather recruit the person into your company. And that's what has been going on over the years. So it's a war. And you talk about data is a mine. What data do we put online? Somebody just spoke about, people twerking on, I don't know, TikTok, etc. That's the data Africa is putting online. How can that data become a gold? So, I mean, like, it's a very, like, collective effort. But as I said, we need political will. We need to harmonize things so that the things that we put, online as a goal that you're talking about shouldn't be twerking and, those kind of videos. So I think I will stop there. I don't know if there's other questions, but I have 2 minutes. If there's a question, I can take it. Else, I can give my final comment.
All right. Thank you so much, Vitus. We are grateful for your time. Yes. Let's appreciate you for your time. We are done. We don't have any other questions. We've enjoyed your session, and we are grateful that every time you give out your all, and then we always go home with something. So it's bye from us, from Accra. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So,
I want to invite all the students to join us for the West African IGF. I'm fortunate to coordinate that. So I invite you to register. I will share the details with Raymond. Register to join us for the West African IGF this year. It's happening in Dakar, in Senegal. It's hybrid. It's next week. So I urge you to come. We have over 30 enlightening sessions where you see, you can actually get more things that make more sense than, the things that I've been saying here. You can actually have, people give you more, more elements. So please register to join. The school is a closed door school, but if next year you want to join the school, let us know. Every year we actually train at least 50 people from the region for the West African school. I coordinate the school, and I'll be happy to see most of you in the regional school next year. See you. And,
thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.